On this week's episode, what's coming soon from PlayStation? Some big trouble in Big China? And is Marvel truly cinema? All this and more as we reach our next stop. All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. This is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break, thanking you for listening to each and every one of our podcasts. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my good friend. He's our own Gemini Man of Pop Culture Cosmos. You got to check out everything that he's doing today at popculturecosmos.com, Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, of course, also as well, Humanica Media, and his book, Congratulations, You Suck. It is my good friend. It is Josh Peterson. It's an action-packed weekend, my friend.
It is. There's a lot going on this week, but what's happening this weekend? Is a big movie coming out? I should know this. I should really know this, but explain it to me. Lay it on me.
Okay, I'll lay it on you right now. Gemini Man and also as well, The Addams Family are hitting theaters to compete against The Joker in its second weekend of distribution. So we'll have to gauge that, and we'll be talking about that here in a minute. But there's a lot of stuff going on as well in regards to China is really not very happy at the moment. And China is really not very happy with all the stuff that's going on here in the United States in the moment. And we'll talk about why when it comes to U.S. pop culture kind of getting a little bit angry at kind of making China a little bit angry. We'll talk about that here coming up in a minute. Plus, also as well, we're going to be talking about Martin Scorsese's comments about Marvel and is it truly cinema? In fact, Rob McCallum is coming up here in a few minutes to talk about it first in his off the cuff segment, plus a little bit more than that. And then we'll be talking about that as well. Jessica Box from the TVRatingsGuide.com has her October TV update. Jamie Monroy has a review of Platoon's Party and thoughts on number 51 to 60 in our top 200 video games of all time. Plus, we're going to be talking again about Marvel, not only as far as is it truly cinema, relating off into Martin Scorsese's comments, but also a possible update on a future Marvel project as well, and then and a future Marvel project as well. But first off, my friend, we're going to be talking about the PlayStation 5. I don't know, man. I would not have officially announced it through a Wired magazine interview. That probably would have not been the best thing to do, but it did get out there through a Wired magazine interview that the PlayStation 5 is officially announced. It's officially on its way, which we officially knew already almost officially. And that it is coming out holiday of 2020 with some great specs on the way. I mean, it's got a nice, powerful, what did I put here? Oh, it's got a third generation Ryzen chip based on an 8-core Ryzen Zen 2 processor. It's, I know that's a lot to take in right there. But I'll tell you what, it's a really fast processor. It delivers up to 8K as far as the high-end performance. Ray tracing is going to be able to do that. Ray tracing is going to be able to do it at a very high rate. Also, as well, it's got a solid state drive, so loading times won't be eradicated 100%, but they will be minimized in great detail. There's also going to be there's also, of course, going to be backwards compatible to the PlayStation 4. We're talking about enhancing the controllers to add even more feedback and a more feedback-like experience. Of course, it's going to incorporate the PlayStation VR. It's really a lot of things to take in there, but I want to ask you, my friend, hearing that first off in the manner that you did, and just like I said, a Wired magazine article, and not some type of pomp or circumstance or a PlayStation experience or anything like that, it kind of was underwhelming.
Well, didn't they this happened before though, right? When they kind of discussed what the PS5 was in a magazine before, And it feels like that because of the, the publicity, the outlets that they're doing this on, it feels to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like they don't have a lot of faith in this product yet.
Not as of yet. I mean, it sounds awesome. I mean, delivering up to 8K, that is something I'm really interested in, even though we don't have any televisions right now to really support it that are feasibly economically acceptable to any consumers out there. I mean, you can get an 8K, TV, but you got to dish out the chunk of change for that. So it's really, that part is nice. The ray tracing is great, but are you going to have again, it goes back to, are you going to have a television to support all this advancements? The fact that it does connect easily to PlayStation VR is nice, but I'm not sure that there are many people very interested in that option. The feedback for the controller is great. And of course, it's PlayStation 4 backwards compatible. All that is great. But again, I go back to what you just said, that it sounds like it's a nice deal. It's probably going to come at a high ticket price initially, but I don't think it's going to be, unless there's some great games attached to it that are exclusive to the system, something that a whole lot of people are going to want right away.
Yeah, and I don't know, Sony's kind of been rebelling against the norms lately, especially, they dropped out of E3. There hasn't really, like, their PlayStation experience that they had was lackluster. We got to see more Last of Us, and that was kind of what ran the show. They announced Ghost of Tsushima, a game that everyone was super stoked about last year at E3. We haven't heard anything about it since. There hasn't been a trailer. Nobody's talked about it.
That's a PlayStation 5 launch title.
Yeah, that's what I'm assuming too. But like, they have become too big for themselves. And with the marketing of the PlayStation 5, it just feels like, oh, you know what? We don't have to spend the money to do this. So we can just tell people about it and they'll be stoked. But what happens if they're wrong? It feels like they're putting out a product and there's not a lot of faith in it so far, or they're overestimating just how badly people want it. Because, I've seen the marketing for PlayStation, seen the marketing for Xbox, and I'm more impressed with what I've seen from Xbox just because I've seen faces on a screen. I've seen a video. I feel like I know more about it. I know more about the people developing it, whereas PlayStation 5 feels so mysterious, and all they really did was announce the same things that the Xbox does.
Absolutely, and just some specs they did throw out there. Yeah, it's very impressive to tech heads. They're very interested in it. I've heard a lot of feedback as far as of a positive nature regarding the system. The only thing is, like I said, like you said, is that they're not promoting it in a fashion that they feel like they're fully behind it, that they're resting their laurels on the 100 million units sold for the PlayStation 4. And this seems to me the same type of situation what happened with the PlayStation 2 and PlayStation 3, where the PlayStation 2, were so successful with it. Then they go ahead and with their arrogance, with a possible amount of arrogance, released the PlayStation 3 with a lot of pomp, circumstance, and a truly high price point that not many could really afford. And I bought one first day, but that was just like, that took almost all the bank account right there for you. So be that as it may, I mean, it just seems like it seems like they're not learning from history. And they got really humbled when it came to the PlayStation 3, so much so that they did everything right initially with the PlayStation 4, and it looks like they're reverting back to what they were before with the PlayStation 3 and the announcement of that. And it just seems like that they're making the same mistakes, and they're not learning they're not learning from their own history.
Well, the PlayStation 3 was a very, very sloppy launch. Like, that had the console was so expensive and it didn't do what it was supposed to do. Remember, they kept talking about how, this can achieve 60 frames per second, but there were no games that could run at 60 frames per second. So they had hyped up all these new innovations, and we didn't see the fruits of those labors until like 3 years after the console came out. So I'm looking at all this stuff. Cool, ray tracing. Oh boy, 8K. When is a TV? We're not even there yet. Like, we're still buying 4K Blu-rays, and a lot of people still haven't even caught on to that yet. So what is the point? And it's good that this shows it's going to be you know, something that works well on home technology for years to come. But you know, why is that such a big focal point? You know, I love the idea of the solid state drive because that'll increase and make loading times faster and do all that stuff. But that's kind of something that has to happen regardless, you know, where they're chalking it up like it's a huge feature. And then another thing that I have concern with is the price point, right? Because the PlayStation 4 released at $399. And then remember when the PS3 came out, if you wanted the higher gigabyte one, it cost $500. And so they're saying that the PS5 is going to premiere at a price point of $500. And is it really worth that much money, especially with the Xbox coming out at $100 cheaper?
Exactly. I think this is where Xbox One will gain an advantage. I think this is where we'll see Xbox One this is where we'll see Xbox finally gain some momentum to the point where they can feel like they're competing at a level on par with both PlayStation and Nintendo if they truly get the jump that we think that they are, at least at this point in time. But there's a year still that we have to go ahead and analyze and see what's coming up as far as games and the features, and there could be a price change in the works for either the PlayStation 5 or the next Xbox, because again, we're still talking about a year on out from the release of these two systems. So I'm eager to see what those two companies will have in mind, plus whatever Nintendo is going to do to stave off both of them from, you know, because they're selling well right now as the number one console on the marketplace. So it'll be interesting to see what PlayStation 5 is going to deliver for us, what the next Xbox is going to deliver for us as well. So this time next year is going to be hot and heavy, and you and I hopefully will be reporting on it and letting everybody out there our thoughts on the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox. My friend, this weekend's also an awesome weekend for This is also an awesome weekend for the movies that are on plate for the weekend. The Joker is in its second weekend, all primed, already doing well. October record out of the books in this first skate. October record in its first weekend. Coming up for a second weekend, should still do very well. Still thinking that's going to be the number one movie this weekend. But you also have Gemini Man and also the Addams Family. I can tell you right now, from the Addams Family, that has done a tremendous amount of promotion. It has tied itself with a lot of different things. I've seen a lot of commercials that have tied into the Addams Family, and they're not just straight Addams Family, go see the Addams Family. I'm seeing as far as the Addams Family with IHOP and the Addams Family with other retailers, restaurateurs, or things of that nature. They're out there pushing the Addams Family. It's in over 4,000 theaters this weekend, so I think it will do fairly well. But then you have Gemini Man, a film that was shot at 120 frames per second in 4K. There's only one problem, Josh. The film can't be shown in theaters in its true form.
I had read some headlines about that. I didn't actually click on the article. Why is that? You're muted, BT Dubs.
The reason why is the reason why is simply because that none of the theaters here in North America, none of the theaters here in the U.S. has a screen that can support it. The best they can do, there's only a few theaters, a small amount of theaters that can do the 120 frames per second, but it can only output it in 2K. So you can't even get it in 4K and 120 frames per second, which is kind of a bummer, because you're not going to, anybody who's going to go see Gemini Man this weekend is not going to really actually see it in the form director Ang Lee wanted you to see it in. So, and it's part of the promotional and the interview tour that they're saying all this stuff. So I ask you, why go see the movie at all?
Well, I honestly, I've been watching this, and I don't really think it's going to do as well as people think it does. Remember, the last remake of an 80s movie they made was Total Recall, and that, well, is visually enticing. It didn't do the numbers that people thought it would. So even if this movie is a visual feast, right? People are going to see this, and it's just amazing. It's blowing their minds. Just the fact that it's not, I haven't seen a lot of trailers for it. You know, I've read about it. I've seen trailers on TV every once in a while, but I haven't seen a lot of internet banners or really anything like that. So I is it worth it to go see it not its true form? Probably not. But is it worth? Are people going to find it that it's worth it to see it in general? Probably not. I mean, and that's just looking at, you know, sequels to these old movies or remakes of these old movies. Just looking at the trends, that's how it kind of looks like that's going to go down.
Yeah, it does look like that's how it's going to go. You know, yeah, it does. That's how. Yes, it does look like that's how it's going to go down. Simply because of the fact that it's not a movie I think a lot of people really want to see. I told you already I wasn't intrigued by the trailer very much. I think it had some flaws in the actual, not the representation of Will Smith and the younger Will Smith and the de-aging on that, because that looks pretty good. But some of the action scenes and some of the scenes where they have special effects on it, I didn't think came out through very well on that end of it. Like when he's riding the bike on the top end of the older on the top, and he's doing it he's riding the bike on the wall, and then he's opposite of the older Will Smith who's riding on the ground, riding a motorcycle on the ground, and it just did not look very believable when he tries to throw the bike at him and all that. It just did not come to me across as something that I needed to see right away. It's probably something I'll catch on video later this year, or something that I may catch later on television or whatnot. But the reviews for the movie are okay, not great. But I think the fact that it's just not the movie that Ang Lee has intended for us to see, and we're not going to be able to actually see it in the form of a theater, and we're not going to actually be able to see it in a theater in the manner that it was meant to be shown. It's kind of disappointing. And the fact is that it is now projecting right now as at a number 3 this weekend, and it doesn't look like it's going to break even at all. So that's a disappointing right out of the gate. It looks like it's a movie that's going to get swept under pretty quickly, unless somehow dramatically people want to go ahead and check out Will Smith's latest, but he just doesn't have the marketing power that he once did.
Yeah, he really just he was a star in the 90s, and which is why it's appropriate that he did this film, but he just has not. People don't like those kind of movies anymore. And as much as I love action films and I love movies like Point Break and I love Terminator and Alien and stuff like that, people just don't gravitate towards those movies anymore. And especially in this era where people aren't going to the movie theaters as often, why are they going to spend money take a chance on something that has an actor that has not been great recently, and a movie that is not known really to anybody but their parents or people who grew up in that era? It seems like it was a really risky move to make this movie, and it's not tied to Marvel or Disney or any of that stuff, which is sad, but it doesn't feel like this was a great time for that movie to come out.
No, it really doesn't. And with its high price tag, rumored to be around 120, 130, even $140 million in production value, simply because it was being shot in a novel fashion that has not been tried too many times before, in 120 frames per second in 4K, it looks like it's going to be something that's going to disappoint greatly at the box office, because it's projected to do only about $20 million initially domestically at the box office, which is probably, it is earmarking itself for a major disappointment for the studio. And that's going to be something that won't enhance Will Smith's, I guess, his status as a leading man, which I know is something that he's always been very conscious of since his great run in the 90s. And it doesn't look like it's going to be coming back anytime soon. But again, go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, it's weird that, I was thinking about this week, is that it's weird that he chose to do this movie and chose not to do the sequel to Independence Day. Because I feel like that would have really improved the way that movie turned out. And 2, it probably would have been smarter for him to jump into a role that he was already familiar with, as opposed to doing a remake of a 90s movie that wasn't that popular to begin with.
Or even the Suicide Squad, because no matter how much you, I, and everybody else in the world trashed that movie, it earned over $700 million worldwide at the box office. So just imagine with James Gunn now at the helm of a second Suicide Squad, just think of the possibilities and how much money it can gross and how much how much star power it could regain for you.
Oh yeah, and also think about what kind of doors could have opened had he chosen to do something with James Gunn, who is kind of, despite his controversy last year, he's kind of on top of the world right now as far as directors go.
He is definitely in that upper echelon. So we'll wait and see what is going to go on, because Ang Lee is a great filmmaker, Oscar award-winning filmmaker. He's done some great work in the past. This is a novel concept in Gemini Man, and I'm not talking about the de-aging of Will Smith. I'm talking about more how it was shot at 120 frames per second in 4K. And even though no theater in the United States can actually show Gemini Man in the form that it was meant to be shown, it's still going to disappoint at the box office this weekend, behind Addams Family and behind The Joker. But we'll go ahead and give you the actual details later on in our Monday episode. Definitely going to go ahead and report just how bad the losses are and just how good the gains are for The Joker. What are your thoughts out there on what's going on with this weekend at the box office? Are you going to check out Gemini Man, Addams Family, or The Joker? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Or are you excited for the PlayStation 5, which is now officially announced and coming to homes in the holiday season of 2020? Share us your thoughts on the latest specs and what's been given out. Is this something that you're really going to go ahead and save up the money for when it comes out next year? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up after break, it is going to be Rob McCallum's Off the Cuff. He's going to be talking about Martin Scorsese's comments about Marvel, and a lot more. Plus, Josh and I are going to Josh and I are going to cash in with our thoughts on this, this brewing controversy with Martin Scorsese and all that. So we're going to talk about that, plus what's going on in China. A lot of stuff going on as far as South Park and all that, with just a lot of stuff going on as far as what's getting banned in China, and thoughts on Marvel coming up after the break. This is the PCC Multiverse. All right, thanks to Rob McCallum for sharing his thoughts on Off the Cuff. Josh, you heard Rob's thoughts on what's going on with his thoughts on Martin Scorsese's comments on Marvel, Jennifer Aniston's comments on Marvel. I want to hear your thoughts. Is Marvel true cinema?
You're putting me in a tough spot here. So
No, it's just a simple question.
Oh my gosh, this is hard because I do enjoy the Marvel films, but as we've discussed before, like look at what Marvel and Disney are, and Lucasfilms even. Warner Brothers, I guess, has done, I mean, not as successfully, but they're still doing this. Like the movie market is monopolized by superheroes and epics and these big sagas, whereas you have these old filmmakers like Steven Spielberg, you have George Lucas now, you have James Cameron. I mean, I don't even know if he counts anymore with his 1,300 Avatar movies, but you have, it feels like you have these guys like Scorsese, right? He came up with Francis Coppola and George Lucas. Coppola. George Lucas, like they had that, they started that studio back when they were all younger. Spielberg, like all these old school filmmakers who pretty much they were around when Hollywood was at a tipping point, right? Hollywood was at the point where they were deciding whether or not they were going to shut down these studios or hand the reins over to a younger generation of filmmakers who had exciting stories to tell outside of these serialized like Pulp Fiction, science fiction stuff. And that was when the landscape of film really changed. But now you have these pioneers who are being pushed out of the industry because of these big superhero films. So I totally understand why Scorsese feels the way he does and says the things he does. And I don't think what he said was really that offensive. He just says, as spectacular as they are, they're not true cinema because they're not conveying human emotion. They do convey human emotion, but it's only on a scale of like, oh, the world is ending. So it's not normal stories about normal people like those, like the noir films that these old directors are so used to making. So I totally see why they feel that way. Do I think that Marvel is true cinema? I think it's a different type of cinema. I don't think it's the cinema that Scorsese knows and loves. I think it's a new breed of cinema, and whether or not it's going to have good or bad effects on Hollywood has yet to be seen. But right now, like, there are no other, I mean, Gemini Man is a perfect example of that. There's no room for films anymore that aren't superhero related or part of the Disney umbrella.
Well, to answer the question, not whether it is or isn't cinema, I think that's a joke. I think it's ridiculous that you should say Marvel's not cinema. That's not. I mean, what makes The Godfather? What makes The Godfather cinema and Marvel not cinema? I mean, that's not fair. It is a form of cinema. Whether it's a form of cinema that you like or you do not like, that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. But to say Marvel, and superhero movies are not true cinema, I think is wrong. I think it takes I think that's punishing every type of cinema that dealt with any type of heroes or villains concept that goes way back when, goes back to the, almost the dawn of cinema, where you have a good a protagonist and an antagonist. So you tell me. I mean, that's just something that is wrong. You can't have it both ways. You either can say it is and have all the stuff taken out of content, all the stuff taken out, whether you have a concept of hero and villain, or you leave it all in. And I'm sorry, to me, it's cinema. It can be cinema that you don't like and that you don't choose to watch. Again, that's your choice. Unfortunately for him, and that's neither here nor there, it's the fact that right now with what's going on in the world and what their tastes are and what the general majority of the public likes is superhero movies. They always liked action pictures, popcorn flicks. They always go see it. I mean, the Jurassic Park movies make a ton of cash. The Lord of the Rings movies have made a ton of cash. Star Wars movie has made a ton of cash. All these big type of films have always made these type of this type of dollar amounts. And I'm sorry if that's not catering to Martin Scorsese's taste or Jennifer Aniston's taste. And she can go ahead and clown off on everything as far as, oh, I don't want to act in front of a green screen and all that. But you know what? That's her choice as an actress to go ahead and choose whatever role she wants. But don't clown on those people that do, because they're actors. That's jobs in the marketplace for actors. And if you didn't have all these superhero movies or all these other action movies or all these other green screen movies that you're doing the majority of your work in front of a green screen, if you didn't have that, that's a lot of work for a lot of actors that aren't there. So you know what? It's up to taste, I think, but it is all cinema.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different type of cinema, and as I said earlier, we've seen these shifts in cinema happen over the years. It happens over and over again. It's just the way that industry works. You had the gritty noir films that Scorsese was famous for, and then you had the the 90s action films that brought up actors like Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger and people like that. And then you had green screen eventually introduced, and that kind of changed the landscape to a more computer animated thing. And that's just the way it is. With new technology comes new things. Like, these movies were things that couldn't have been done well, 10, not 10, obviously not 10, but like 20 years ago, right? Back in the 90s, 80s, what have you. We have all this new technology that allows us to do bigger and better films now. And I think that, like, Jennifer Aniston, Scorsese, these are the death cries of people who have lost their time in the spotlight, and they feel angry and they feel like they're being pushed out because of these big films. And it's not, I don't necessarily blame them for the way that they feel, but at the same time, like, this is human nature, right? It's adapt or die, and they're choosing to not move forward with their career, and that's kind of putting a nail in their coffin, so to speak.
It definitely is. But again, those are our thoughts. If you have different thoughts, let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Is Marvel and superhero movies truly cinema? I think they are, and I think if you don't like them, you don't have to watch it. Watch them. Simple as that. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, before we head to the break and all that, and the rest of the show, I want to ask you real quick. Banned in China. A lot of stuff going on as far as China not liking a lot of things that have been going on with the tweet that was sent out by Houston Rockets general manager Daryl Morey regarding Hong Kong. getting the NBA, Houston Rockets, and him in a lot of hot water and a lot of dollars lost right there. That's talking about possibly potentially billions of dollars right there. Then you have an individual that was partaking in a Hearthstone tournament that during an interview said free Hong Kong, and that individual not only got banned by Blizzard and got banned by Blizzard for a year, he got his prize money taken away, which has caused a major uproar on Twitter, on social media in regards to boycotting Blizzard. Then you have the guys from South Park. You can never forget the guys from South Park. Their episode 299 was called Banned in China, just B-A-N-D, Banned in China. And the episode, it was basically just another one of those episodes where they go ahead and push the envelope even more. And it got China angry to the point where they obliterated anything relating to South Park on their internet. So I ask you, my friend, all this pop culture stuff really getting to anger China. I don't see a good ending to this anytime soon. And if you keep on going ahead and hitting that hot button, which to them a hot button right now is Hong Kong, that's a really, we're still going to see more stuff like this happen. And it could lead to even more of a censorship from China, which was starting to embrace a lot of the stuff that we were sending them. And it looks like because of the Hong Kong issue, a lot of that stuff could be taken away.
So I have two thoughts on this. One is we have a lot of people who I applaud their revolutionaryism, if that's a word, but at the same time, why? I'm sorry, hold on, there's a dog barking. It's not mine, actually, for once. Okay, I think they're done. I applaud their revolutionary attempts and the way that they're sticking it to the man, but at the same time, why bother saying it? You have a platform, that's cool, but you can be more constructive with that platform than saying something that is going to get you in trouble. My other thought on that is the opposite side of that coin, right? We have gotten to the point where we are afraid to say things because so much of the people that we work for here have big markets in China, so we are essentially having to censor ourselves, and that's one thing that I'm not okay with. But it feels like the hammer in this situation, there needs to be a set standard, because it feels like the hammer is coming down harder on some people than others, right? Because you look at the Mulan situation, right? The actress who talked about that, no one really cared. That disappeared after 2 days. And then you have this with Blizzard, and Blizzard has, I know they have a market in China, but these are gamers. You have to expect them to say stupid things. You have to be prepared for that. And he didn't say anything that was super offensive. He just made a political comment. That's comes with the territory, and then he gets the prize money taken away. I don't agree with that. I think those Blizzard trying to cover their backsides, but it's weird, that we are so afraid because we have such big markets in China. As for the South Park thing, it's not unusual. Look at how many people are talking about this. They knew it was going to happen, and I guarantee you they looked at the number of viewers in China and decided that it was worth it, because now look how many people are talking about South Park. It's all over the news.
Absolutely. You got to do something to keep it fresh after 20, in your 24 seasons. So leave it to South Park to go ahead and do that. I mean, this is not the first time that they've done something so egregious to one sector of the population that sector has gone out of the way to go ahead and ban, or even Comedy Central has had to ban episodes of South Park in the past because of the controversial nature of some of the stuff that they show. So that's not surprising at all. But when it comes to this issue, Hong Kong is a very hot button, and you're going to hear more statements that are going to be straight down the middle, like we've been seeing from the NBA in the past few days. And yes, the money there is, when they tell you it's not about the money, it is about the money. For the NBA, for Blizzard, and for anybody else that's doing business with a lot of money invested into China, it is going to be an issue going forward that you have to go ahead and walk that fine line. You have to go ahead and basically just try to go ahead and almost you're just walking on pin cushions because you're just basically just very, very tentative about what you can say and do to not make the China market angry at all, and believing and saying anything about Hong Kong is going to be very deferential to what's going on with their future, whatever pop culture entity goes ahead and does it. I mean, we were, like you said, we've already seen it with the backlash from Blizzard, and now we're seeing it, Blizzard and the NBA, and now we're seeing it with a lot of other stuff as well. So it is a hot button, and it will remain a hot button until something is resolved, hopefully peacefully for Hong Kong, and hopefully we will see a lot more friendliness, and we were seeing a lot better results. Hollywood is now has a major investment in China. Pop culture and pop culture entities, sports entities, they all have a major investment now in China. So hopefully the rhetoric will not continue in such a fashion, or the actions will not continue in such a fashion that these doors will close. My hope is that a peaceful resolution to all this can be resolved, and we can go forward and bring good things to not only their culture, but their culture can bring good things to us. What are your thoughts on? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just until I feel like I got mixed feelings on this. I feel like China needs to, if they really want to be part of the Western market, they need to kind of embrace that part of Western culture a little bit. What they do in their country is it's their business. But I mean, as far as like what's going on, like it's happening, it's their situation that they created, and it's like people are going to comment on it. It's like me coloring my hair pink and going out in public. People are going to talk about it. I can't like censor everybody that says something about me though.
And thank goodness that's not going to be the case of you coloring your hair pink. But what are your thoughts out there on the continual issues going on with China, with Blizzard, the NBA, and South Park? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Well, coming up after the break, Jessica Boggs from the TVRatingsGuide.com has our October TV update. Right after that, Jamie Monroy is going to be reviewing Batoon's Party and counting down number 51 to 60 in our top 200 video games of all time. And then Josh and I will be back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. Well, my friend, you heard the thoughts of Jamie Monroy on number 51 to 60 in our top 200 video games of all time. As you had a chance to peruse what was going on that latest list of 10, what are your thoughts on the games of, what your experiences with games in the 51 to 60 in our top 200 video games of all time?
Hey, sorry, you might have to edit this out. I need the link to the article. Can you put it on the private chat?
I send it to you on the Facebook. All right.
Ooh, hold on.
I'll send it to you. Hold on. I'll send it to you again.
I logged out of Facebook. My bad.
Here you go. I see here. It's right there on StreamYard. By the way, thank you for thank you for watching, viewer out there. Thank you for watching.
Okay. So going down this list here, have not played Bucky O'Hare. Okay. Brave Fencer Musashi. I love this game. Remember you asked us what our favorite soundtracks were during our Pop Culture Cosmos panel at Level Up Expo?
I did.
This game has one of the greatest soundtracks I've ever listened to. Like, I remember always being curious about this. This is before I got into RPGs. I remember being super curious about this. I just gotten done playing Final Fantasy VII. I was at Blockbuster, saw Brave Fencer Musashi, last copy left on the shelf. I'm like, okay, why not? Sat there, turned it on. I played it until I was done. Like, I think I slept probably 3 hours that night. Got up the next morning, played more Brave Fencer Musashi. I think I rented on Friday and I beat it on Sunday. So it is a fantastic game, and like I totally see why it costs so much money, because it's amazing. You go on eBay, the cheapest copy you can find is like $80, and very rarely do they still come with the booklet, the books, and the original casing. So I'm a huge fan of this game. Absolutely love it. Super Mario Odyssey is one of those games that I played it. I beat it. I didn't feel the need to go back and keep trying to get the stars or the moons like I did with Mario 64. And maybe that's just because, there are other games I wanted to play, so I didn't like feel the need to keep going back to that one. Great game. And I love the way that Mario's been able to translate himself into modern gaming, but I just have, it's not something that I felt compelled to play like I did with Mario's in the past, if that makes sense. Halo 2, who doesn't have great memories of this game, right? This was the first, I remember buying so many magazines, reading about the campaign. I was hooked. What always drew me into Halo was the mythology of it. The mythology, the soundtrack, the characters. It was all so compelling. And I remember spending days and days playing Combat Evolved with my brother. We'd play it on normal, then we'd move on to heroic, move on to legendary, do the thing where you'd have one person hide back, the other person would die, and they'd reappear, and then the next person would charge in there and try to clear out the rest of the enemies. Love this. And then I love the way they brought some of the old maps back but put new skins on them. So that was my first true experience with multiplayer gaming online, because that was when the original Xbox Live kit started coming out. Going back here, Warlords, never really played. Resident Evil, huge fan of those games. I didn't actually play Resident Evil to Resident Evil 2, and then I went back and played the first one. So I did the remasters on Games Pass. So I played 0, then I played Resident Evil. Great game, not a lot to say about those. Pokemon Silver was fun, the first official sequel to Red and Blue, which was Gold and Silver. Really liked those games. Never played Onimusha. Spyro the Dragon. What kid does not have great memories of Spyro the Dragon? I actually just bought the remastered version last Christmas, and I was sitting there playing it. Now available on Switch, by the way, if you're interested. But, there's just something as someone who has gaming OCD where I have to 100% everything, it's not as bad as it used to be. But I remember having to go back and always wanting to find all the diamonds. I go through, I would go online trying to find out, where's this last egg? Where's this last diamond? And I just spent hours playing this game. Didn't like the sequels very much, but Spyro the Dragon, classic game. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, unfortunately, never really had experience with that one. What about you, though? Anything on this list that sticks out?
Well, as I mentioned, Halo 2, just a truly remarkable, innovative multiplayer, one of the best multiplayer experiences ever. I played it for 2 straight years. And GTA San Andreas, I mean, the fact that you could go ahead and how it was built and such an open world and the 3 big different cities that you could go to within the game, within the context of the game, just truly a great experience of open world gaming, and it led to such a expansive GTA atmosphere and more GTA iterations that have expanded the series even further. So those are our thoughts on the on numbers 51 to 60 in our top 200 video games of all time. If you want the entire list in numbers of 10, just check out our site popculturecosmos.wordpress.com, or check out our episodes now and in the past few weeks on Pop Culture Cosmos on the Pop Culture Cosmos channel. Well, my friend, just want to go ahead and thank so much Rob McCallum for his off-the-cuff segment, Jessica Box from the TVRatingsGuide.com for her October TV update, and Jamie Monroy for his review of Platoon's Party. I want to mention as well, if you get a chance, if you need a listing of where we're at, and you want to check out where we're at, because we're being played all around the world 7 days a week on radio stations worldwide, you can just check out our listings today. Pop Culture Cosmos on Facebook, where you also get a listing of many of our over 30 different podcast options as well. Before we head on out, my friend, you got to give everybody an update on how they can get your awesome book, which is selling very well, and it's reviewed even better. Congratulations, you suck.
Yeah, I'm actually getting reviews from people I've never met before, and that's as an author, that's something that makes me feel very good. Also, it is on its way to selling out again on Amazon, so you can, I think there's 7 or 8 copies left, so you can pick one of those up today, and you can get the book from Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Book Locker, and there's a lot of other secondhand sellers that are selling it now, I've noticed. I would honestly appreciate it if you just picked up the book, but also I'd love it if you left a review on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. That would help me out a great deal, and if you already have picked it up, thank you very much.
Once again, that's congratulations, you suck. You got to get it today BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.com, the Nook, the Kindle, or stop by your local Barnes & Noble. My friend, it's been a great episode. Any last thoughts on the way out?
Not that I can think of. I think we pretty much covered everything. I am still playing Borderlands, so I'm almost done. I'll have some thoughts on that when I'm finished with it. But for now, I think we're good.
We'll look for our Monday show to also recap what went on the weekend box office. Plus, also I'm hoping to also get Daphne Matthew from The Walking Dead to talk about the Walking Dead universe, because I have a lot of questions right now when it comes to the whole TWD universe, and hopefully and so much more coming on our Monday's Pop Culture Cosmos. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the Pop Culture Cosmos. Wrong show. In the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.